Good evening. I'd like to welcome you both here in person and on the video to the Candidates Forum on Tuesday, October 16th, jointly hosted by the Midcoast Community Council and the League of Women Voters of Northern and Central San Mateo County. Tonight we've got both the Granada Community and Sanitary District candidates and the Montero Water and Sanitary Districts. The first one will be Granada and second will be Montero. So I am going to introduce Margie, your moderator from the League of Women Voters, and I'm getting out of the way. Margie?
Thank you. Well, I already mentioned the cell phones, so please make sure they're off or on silent. Also, I don't see any, but there's no campaign literature or other material campaign promoting clothing permitted in the room. My name is Margie Gator, and I am with the League of Women Voters of North and Central San Mateo County. Thanks tonight to the Midcoast Community Forum for sponsoring, Midcoast Community Council for sponsoring this forum tonight. The League of Women Voters is a nonpartisan political organization of both men and women, and our purpose is to promote active and informed participation in government. We appreciate the interest and efforts of groups such as the MCC in presenting events that increase voters' knowledge about the candidates and the issues. The purpose of a candidate forum is to provide an opportunity for all the candidates to be heard one at a time and to be questioned by you, the audience and voters. Bringing the candidates and voters together face to face enables voters to be better informed and make wise decisions on election day. We appreciate your interest in coming out to learn more about the candidates and ask them questions. Tonight you will hear from the candidates for the Granada Community Services District. There are 4 candidates for 3 seats, and the term is 4 years. Again, this event is a nonpartisan setting for the voters to hear from all the candidates. It's not for the supporters or opponents of any particular candidate in the audience to demonstrate his or her own views and preferences. So keep any expressions of disdain or delight to yourselves for now. And hold your applause until the end of the forum, and then we'll thank all the candidates at once. The candidates, in alphabetical order, are Barbara Dye, Nancy Marsh, Davidseaton, and Erik Superman. The rules of the forum are as follows. The opening statements, each candidate will have 2 minutes for an opening statement, and then we'll have the question period. During the question period, each candidate will have 1 minute to answer. All candidates will have equal time to speak to the question. And then we'll have closing statements, and those will also be 2 minutes each. Our timekeeper is Betty, came from over the hill to do this for us. Thanks, Betty. She will hold up warning signs when the candidate has 1 minute, then 30 seconds, and then at the end, the timekeeper, she'll hold up the stop sign and until you stop talking. You can finish your sentence, but don't go on for a whole paragraph, please. Our usher's Kathy Wheeler in the back, and our questions will come to us in writing, so she's got cards. If you have questions, just raise your hand and write them down. She'll bring them to me, and I will sort and get them asked. Please try to write a bit legibly and a little large. That would be helpful, and try to keep them brief. Questions of a personal nature will not be asked. And just FYI, Kathy and I both live on the coast side, but we don't vote in these particular elections. And then just raise your hand, and Kathy will help you with either pick up your questions or get you a card to ask more questions, because we know you've got lots of them. We don't always have time to ask all the questions, and sometimes I might need to combine or rephrase some questions, so you might not hear your question asked exactly how it's written. But we'll try to get to all the topics, and if there's a hot topic that has lots of different issues, I'll ask more than one question on that topic. All right, it's time for the opening statements. The candidates have drawn lots to determine the order in which they will speak. Again, each candidate will have 2 minutes for their opening statement, and our first one is Nancy Marsh.
Okay, thanks, Margie. My name is Nancy Reed Marsh. I'm running for Granada Community Services District Board of Directors. A little bit about me. I grew up in Los Angeles and moved us east. I've been married for 32 years to Derek. We have 2 grown kids, fully launched, we're happy to say. We moved east in 1989, and when I retired, we were looking forward to coming back to California, but not to the crowded Southern California, but to where we could see the ocean, and the weather is mild, and not all the houses and people look the same. So we really enjoy eclectic El Granada. I have a BA in biology from Cal State Northridge and started my career as a medical technologist, working my way up to running a medical testing laboratory, and then to go right turn into the corporate offices in HR, which was supposed to be temporary and lasted the next 18 years, ending as Senior Vice President of Human Resources for the R&D and Global Franchises groups at GlaxoSmithKline Pharmaceuticals. As a recent retiree now, I have a lot of time and I have skills, and while I don't miss at all having a job and an alarm clock, I miss doing tangible, productive things. So I joined the GCSD Parks Committee in January and have been really energized by the opportunity to envision and engage the community in beautifying parts of El Granada, the Burnham Park, and the El Granada medians. I bring to the community outreach my experience in engaging people and putting all their voices together and making sure they feel like they're heard, probably the best thing I learned in HR, and will bring informed oversight for fiscal responsibility, protection of the environment, and beautification of our shared areas for everybody. Thank you.
Thank you. And next will be Davidseaton.
Okay, thank you. Living my entire life on the coast outside of college years where I earned a finance degree from San Diego State. I've lived on the coast with 4 generations of relatives originally moving here in the 50s and recent additions of nieces, nephews, and my 3-year-old son, Mateo. Family has grown up deeply loving our wonderful coastal community, growing to love many local families as family. Growing up in a small town and experiencing challenging financial times as a young child was truly one of life's greatest blessings. From a young age, I keenly remember going to places like Safeway and getting stopped multiple times by random strangers with stories like, "We're pulling for you," and everything. You guys are gonna, you guys are a great family. You guys are gonna pull through this. As life struggles hit hard, our pride led us to hold our heads higher than ever. In retrospect, we were almost treated like mini celebrities by a coastal community who would regularly go out of their way to show the immense gravity of the respect, love, and support. This created a continuum of gratitude, courage on one end, defined by the community support inherently in existence and always there to break your fall, and indebtedness to one day be able to repay your community with service in hopes of making them proud as parents. Thus, when 50 people reached out to me 4 years ago, I immediately felt the urgency, and my decision to run was simple. Many of the calls came from families concerned about how GCSD had no real intention of providing active parks, requesting I become a champion for ensuring investments actually went towards tangible active recreation instead of only further agency empire building, staff hires, and acquiring land, all of which has happened and is shamefully still happening despite not even one active recreation project or even one broken bench fixed. Most people talked about how our fragmented sanitary system wasted taxpayer money on duplicate cost centers for 4 separate fragmented and operationally inefficient sanitary agencies. 2016 grand jury report not only confirmed these findings, but essentially predicted the exact area of coastal pipeline merely a few months later where there would be hundreds of thousands of sewage spilt into the ocean.
That's your time.
So I'm the right candidate, and I hope I have your vote.
And next is Erik Superman.
Thank you, Margie. My name is Erik Superman. I'm running for the Granada Community Services District. I'm a relative newcomer to the coast. I've been here for about 5 years. I grew up in Wyoming, migrated east for college, where I got my undergraduate degree in chemical engineering for switching gears and getting a master's and doctoral degree in environmental engineering. After finishing school in Atlanta in 2006, I was looking for new opportunities and wanted to experience new things and decided to move to the San Francisco Bay Area. I've spent the last 12 years here, first in the East Bay and then San Francisco and then the coast. I have become a principal within my environmental engineering consulting company, experienced in management of various large-scale engineering projects, management of teams ranging from small 3-person teams up to large departments of 14+ people. Have spent significant time working with various stakeholders in the government and public spheres to build consensus on our various projects. I met my wife, who is a coastal native, in 2011. Once we decided to get married, we wanted to move someplace where we could raise our children, be close to family, so we moved to the El Granada area in 2013. And now that we have our 2 small children who have thankfully gotten to the age where I can take a break and do some other things, I wanted to take stock, invest some of my time and effort in making our community a better place, focusing on both active recreation and parks, as well as ensuring that we have good technical and managerial oversight of our local sewers. With that, I'll thank everyone for their time tonight, and thank you for considering me for your vote.
Thank you. And finally, Barbara Dye.
Hi, good evening. I'm Barbara Dye, running for GCSD Board. I'd like to first thank the Midcoast Community Council and the League of Women Voters for having this forum. It's a really valuable thing to get our perspectives out there to the community. I'm also a relative newcomer. I moved here in 2014, got very involved in the community. I'm a docent at Fitzgerald Marine Reserve. I do a lot of volunteering for Coastside Land Trust. I monitor conservation easements, and I'm working with the Half Moon Bay History Association to try to raise the funding for a history museum, a Coastside History Museum in Half Moon Bay. I have a lot of background in both environmental management and government, and I'm excited to bring those here to my new community, El Granada. I was on the original Parks Committee for the Granada Community Services District, and when Rick Lohman moved away to Montera, I was appointed to fill that vacant seat. So I've served on the board for the last year and a half, and last December I was unanimously voted as vice president of the board, which I considered a great honor. It's a really great opportunity to work on this board because we have such great opportunities here to make a difference right here in this community. As you probably know, 4 years ago, this community voted to give parks powers to the Granada Community Services District. But when I came on the board, really very little had been done to make that happen. And now I'm happy to say that we are moving forward with plans for Burnham Park, which the front yard of our community, and some work on the medians. I also want to emphasize that what's really important is community input, and make sure that whatever we do is what this community wants. And again, as others have said, I'm interested in financial oversight, both of our operations and of the SAM board, and communication with our residents, because I think that's an important thing. So there's so many challenges ahead for this district, but I think working together we can really accomplish some great things. Thank you.
Thank you. And now it's time for the candidates to answer your questions, and I'm getting good questions, thanks, but keep them coming. And Kathy will be happy to pick any up if you have any more. Each candidate will have 1 minute to answer the questions, and each question, and I will vary the order in which the candidates are called upon to speak. With that, our first question is, tell us your view of what El Granada should look like in 5 to 10 years. What is your view of what El Granada should look like in 5 to 10 years? And we will start with Nancy Marsh.
Thank you, Margie. Good, I was hoping I would get to go first because we might have some common views here. In 5 to 10 years, I would love to see on the Burnham Strip a beautiful park for both viewing the ocean, and with 7 acres to work with. I think we can have areas for those who just like to sit and contemplate the ocean, and those who need playgrounds, and those who want to go for a run around the perimeter. So I'm really excited about working on bringing that to the community. And on the, a minute is less than 2 minutes, isn't it? I'm looking forward to really working with the medians. I love the medians in El Granada. They really make it special, and I'd like to see within 5 years improved trails so that they're all walkable, and maybe some improved landscaping as well, so that they have some flowering plants and not just dirty trees.
Thank you. And next is Barbara Dye.
I didn't realize we were going in random order. Well, I agree with a lot of what Nancy said. I think the medians, we want to know what this community wants. I can see some small improvements to some of them, picnic tables, maybe some playgrounds in a couple locations. Again, we're going to listen to our residents. I think having better trails through them is a really good thing. We're going to have to really look at the tree question. We have a lot of old trees here, and I don't really know the solution to that, but I think we have to look at that. And for the Burnham Park, which is really our front yard, I want to see us with some lawn area where people can just relax and look at the ocean. We're still coming together to try to figure out what this community wants, but I think it can be much more beautiful than what we have right there now, which is a lot of weeds and a dirt parking lot. So I think we're very lucky that we have the opportunities to make a difference here. We also want to support some of the active recreation options where they make sense, like in Quarry Park.
Thank you. And next is Erik Superman.
Thank you. In addition to the great ideas we've heard on parks both within the Burnham Strip and the various medians, I'd stress that I would like to see in 5 years improvements that make sense to the various stakeholders. I know there are many strong opinions on what the best use of the medians in particular are. Things like walking paths, some beautification and planting. Nothing too radical, perhaps. In addition, I would also like to see us continue to maintain a high level of quality service with respect to the sewers, as well as continuing to work to keep our rates low relative to our colleagues, peers, neighbors in Montera, Hocking Bay, and other districts.
Thank you. And finally, Davidseaton.
Okay, thank you. So I see beauty in the vision that I keep seeing is tangible active recreation projects and the sight of people ranging in age, 80-plus years, all out on Burnham Strip or the medians doing different exercises that are encouraged and fostered by our active recreation projects. And to me, that extends beyond the beauty of any tree or plant or anything else that, is beautiful in terms of looking at, but the layer of beauty of seeing the people out there goes that much further. I also see beauty in clean water, and we had 65 raw sewage spills into the ocean since 2013 across the agencies on the coast. That is absolutely unacceptable. We had one of the largest spills in coastal history. To me, beauty is being able to surf in clean water and not have to worry about literal raw sewage being dumped out into your face and into your mouth. And I see beauty in that clean water. So along with those, I think that I see beauty in the future.
Thank you. Our next question, are you for or against sanitary district consolidation? Are you for or against sanitary district consolidation? And first on this will be Erik Superman.
Thank you, Marty. Excuse me. Thank you, Marty. My for or against, I think that's a kind of a difficult question to answer with one word. I think that sewer consolidation is an issue that could certainly make sense. As with many things financial, I think the devil's in the details. So I think any decision on consolidation is really going to have to be made on the basis of what the financials look like, what the potential benefits to the communities we serve are, as well as what the overall benefits to the coast are. I think people have pointed out and pointed out to me and made a fair point that in a sense we're all in this together. So anything we do needs to make sense for our local communities, but also needs to serve the greater good of the entire coast side.
Thank you. And next on this is Nancy Marsh.
Thanks, Marty. I'm actually for exploring whether consolidation is beneficial to Granada, ratepayers in particular. In Granada, we have sewer rates that are the lowest in the county and less than half of the rates in Montera and in Half Moon Bay, in part because we have this wonderful bowl of a hillside. So we have a gravity-fed sewer system. And so that is part of what keeps our costs low. That said, I think that we should always look for efficiency to continue to keep our costs low into the future. And I think we should open a dialogue and really explore whether there is a mutually beneficial consolidation opportunity.
Thank you. And next on this is Davidseaton.
So this is a topic I could talk about for hours and hours, but to break it down, I think, to me, I look at if we do nothing, we continue to pollute, we continue to waste money on duplicate costs that have been identified by multiple government agencies. The nuclear option is going to be consolidation into Half Moon Bay, and that is something that I think is a lot of El Granada residents don't want to see. So there are other alternatives like consolidation with Montera and how that would look in consolidating into one sanitary and one director for things like parks, which they're looking at. In between, there's about 100 other scenarios, which, you know, I wanted to talk about over the past 4 years, and even the grand jury report identified their concern that our board shut down my discussion in terms of discussing the issue, because I feel like it's something that needs to be debated in situations like this between multiple agencies over a period of months, and somewhere within that there is a deal that can be struck between all agencies, which will benefit all ratepayers on the coast.
Thank you. And finally, Barbara Dunn.
Thank you. I think, as everyone has said, I'm open-minded about looking at consolidation. I think we represent the people of El Granada, and it would result in a major increase in sewer rates here. Having said that, I think it may make sense for some kind of consolidation. I'm certainly willing to look at it. I think we also need to talk about the issues of the spills and so forth, which were really the result of disagreements in terms of the management of the sewer authority for the Midcoast side, which all three entities participate in. Thank goodness some of that big line that feeds from Montera down to the sewer plant has indeed been repaired. So while it was a terrible thing, we are in much better shape than we were a few years ago. So it's a complicated issue. It's really hard to look at. I have an open mind, but I see that my responsibility is to represent the people of El Granada with our wonderful gravity.
Thank you. Our next question, what should the district do with the Burnham Strip property? What kinds of activities, facilities would you like to see there? What should the district do with its Burnham Strip property, the types of activities and facilities you'd like to see there? And this will start with Barbara Dodd.
Thank you. I guess I've been kind of the driving force behind getting this going, so it's nice that I get to start first on this. First of all, we have to listen to our community, figure out what our community wants there. And we have a start on that. We brought in a good, very local landscape architect to do some plans for us of what could go there. And we made it clear that those were just ideas, sort of just sparked discussion. And we had our first community outreach event and last summer, where we had 70 people submit responses. And we're going to move forward. We're looking at, I think, nobody wants anything, number one, that's going to really block the view. We don't want the kind of recreation that's going to send balls off into both active roads on either side. I think we're supportive of playgrounds and picnic tables and maybe a little plaza, some restoration of the drainages through there, some native plants, maybe some turf area where people can picnic and so forth. There are a lot of options, and we want to work with the community to come up with the best possible plan.
Thank you. And next is Davidseaton.
For Burnham Strip, I think that to start, I think we need to do a better job of truly engaging the community. I think so many times we hold a meeting and then we take some comments, and then the two directors will say, okay, we're going to go back and work on this, come up, you know. I think we need to follow the lead of county parks, city of Half Moon Bay, in terms of really being transparent in a truly engaging process as far as a working meeting held at El Granada School or whatever, where we're truly engaging and going to that next deeper level of engagement. Within that, I mean, me personally, I would love to see some type of circular track. I think it would become the best running spot in the world in terms of seeing people that are running out there late at night as the sun sets, running laps and running miles, you know, and I really look at how unsafe the coastal trail is to go out late at night, and then you're dealing with different wildlife and other things, whereas that would be a truly unique, one-of-a-kind place for being able to run. I also look at, being able to shoot hoops as the sun sets and kind of things like that, having active recreation that would pull people from El Granada into Burnham Strip.
Thank you. And next is Nancy Marsh.
Thanks, Margie. I really am committed to, I think the role of anybody who sits on a board is to represent their community. So I'm really committed to answering that question, what should we do with the Burnham Strip, with as many voices from the services district as we can pull in to give us comments. At the event Barbara mentioned last summer, we asked people to give us written comments. I did the analysis of those comments, and every word of every comment got typed into a database, and anything anybody said they wanted got a check mark. The report from the Burnham event you can find now on granada.ca.gov on the Parks and Recreation page, which shows you all that data. So I think we're also really committed to transparency and keep playing back in an iterative process to the community what they said, what we heard, and how that translates into the next iteration of design for them to comment on. So it's a long process, but everybody should be able to see a little bit of their voice in the result.
Thank you. And finally, Erik Superman.
Thank you, Marty. Just to reiterate what everyone said, I think it's key that our job is to really listen to and listen to in a meaningful way the feedback from the various stakeholders on the coast for what they want. I will say that I see the Burnham Strip as kind of the gateway to El Granada in particular. You drive by it whenever you're going down Highway 1 or going up Highway 1. So I think we want something that reflects the nature of El Granada. I see it as something that should be kept relatively open so that we can continue to have nice views, nice sight lines. People can enjoy the strip while having nice views of the beach. I do think some active recreation makes sense. It is a wonderful venue for a running track, I would say. But notwithstanding that, I do think we need to strike the right balance between developing it into a more usable space while maintaining that open sense that has it make a nice gateway to the ocean from the community.
Thank you. Our next question is about budget. What are your biggest concerns with the SAM budget? What are your biggest concerns with the SAM budget? And if you identify concerns, please provide a suggested solution. Your biggest concern about the SAM budget and remedies for them. And first on this is Davidseaton.
So I go back to the SAM budget, and it's another issue that kind of stems from the original intent of the JPA was a cost-sharing agreement between multiple agencies. Somewhere along the line, the agencies each got into their own central theme of agency empire building and their focus on building their own and protecting their own agency from future consolidation rather than the cost-sharing. And I look at this as, the grand jury report identified so many areas of overlapping duplicate costs that all of us are paying that shouldn't even be an issue, because years ago, the cost-sharing agreement is there to replace those. And I think that it's one of those things where, the fact that there's contention between agencies talking about we're not going to meet to discuss, certain cost-sharing arrangements is inconceivable to me, because the JPA specifically is there to provide for cost-sharing agreements. And I think that there's so many things that just low-hanging fruit that just could be eliminated, and working together, not only it will be reduced costs, but you're going to find that the cooperation is going to lead to less spills and other issues.
Thank you. Next is Erik Superman.
Thank you, Marty. I think for me the key is to just make sure that the budgetary process is as transparent as possible. I do agree with David that there are likely opportunities, setting aside consolidation, there are probably opportunities for eliminating redundancies that we're all sharing amongst ourselves. I think the key to identifying and eliminating those redundancies is to work closely with the other members of SAM to enhance the relationships that we have amongst ourselves so that we can have meaningful and fruitful discussions on where those redundancies are and eliminate them.
Thank you. And next is Barbara Dye.
Well, SAM is a separate agency, and all three other agencies pay a portion of its support. And right now, Half Moon Bay is suing our agency and Montera because they don't want to pay the costs of transmitting the material from our agencies down to the sewer treatment plant, which was a part of the original agreement. It's a difficult structure, but the notion that we can just somehow all join together and eliminate redundancies and make everything work isn't really a solution. It's more complicated than that, and we have to figure out a revision to the relationship between the parties that are involved in this, in managing SAM, which we hope will happen in the near future, so that we can all have our say about our proper oversight about what happens there that affects all of our agencies.
Thank you. And finally, Nancy Marsh.
Thanks, Margie. I'm actually really looking forward to understanding SAM and the JPA better. I actually love budgets and digging into them. I ran a 24/7 medical laboratory with 400 employees. I like plants and would love to have a tour and really dig into the management. I have seen on the video broadcast one SAM meeting where it just seemed to be an entire 2 hours of concerns about transparency, about accuracy, and about the charges out and whether they're right. So there really is something, I think, to look at there. I'm not sure it starts with the budget. It may start with the transparency and building trust that what the agency is putting out is actually accurate and in line with the JPA.
Thank you. Our next question is about experience. Describe your experience working on or with multi-member decision-making bodies. Describe your experience working on or with multi-member decision-making bodies. Were other members sorry to see you leave? Or happy? Describe your experience working on or with multi-member decision-making bodies. And we'll start with Nancy Marsh.
Okay, thank you. Goodness, this goes back a long way, but when I was running a medical lab, I had a team that reported to me of 10 people. We were a pilot site for our corporation for high-performance work teams and culture change. We were, amongst the 4 divisions in the corporation, the most successful pilot, both in terms of improving the profitability of the business from already one of the highest, third highest to highest, and as well as employee satisfaction and customer satisfaction. So that was a very high-functioning team. I was on the leadership team of the R&D division of GlaxoSmithKline for 15 years, and part of my role as HR was to drive the dynamic and make sure there was a healthy dynamic in that team. It's something that I have a lot of interest in and experience with, working both within a team and working on other teams.
Thank you. And next on this is Barbara Dunn.
Hi. I spent 5 years running the Palos Verdes Peninsula Land Conservancy, which is a land trust in the Palos Verdes Peninsula. Our challenge, and actually I had started 20 years before as a board member, one of the original board members, and helped build the organization. But during the time I was executive director, we had the challenge to preserve the remaining open space on the peninsula, bringing all kinds of community groups together to make it happen. So we put together a deal which included the state, the Wildlife Conservation Board, the Coastal Conservancy. We had the county give us money, we had the city give us money, and we raised $5 million. We actually only needed to raise $4 million, but we raised $5 million in the community to put that project together. We also had the Native Plant Society, the Sierra Club, we had every local conservation group, we had the bicyclists, we had the equestrian groups, we had a huge community-wide combination of efforts to put together to create the largest open space in Los Angeles County south of the mountains.
Thank you. And next is Erik Superman.
And I led it.
Thank you. So in my day job, I am a consultant for a responsible party for a large Superfund site down in Silicon Valley. As part of that work, we participate in meetings and the decision process with other responsible parties, the EPA, the State Water Board, as well as local developers and local community members. All those stakeholders have a say in developing and implementing the remedial actions for the specific site. It's been a very challenging process. Every entity has a different opinion on what should be done, different reasons for why they want it to be done. It's been very rewarding. We've worked very hard to move that project forward, and I think the key to doing that is we've worked to develop and present solutions that are technically defensible, financially defensible, make a lot of sense, and we've worked to develop a rapport and a level of trust with each stakeholder and each member of the committee so that they trust that our decisions are being made in their benefit.
Thank you. And finally, Davidseaton.
Ruth, can you repeat the question?
Sure. Describe your experience working on or with multi-member decision-making bodies.
Okay, so one of my first real experiences was right out of college. I was recruited by the dean of our business school to start a biomedical startup company, Histogen, and you know, it was a really interesting experience in terms of being on the ground floor of initially working on business planning and then going to the fundraising side and working with different high net worth investors, and then all the way through where I was involved in both our corporate business meetings that took place, and also our scientific advisory board meetings where I was picking up different board members that you know, that were basically scientists and doctors and you know, and had to get caught up, you know, vastly in terms of, you know, subject matter and everything else. And you know, it was you know, right out of college, it was a great experience in terms of working with different people and different you know, across different positions.
Thank you. I have a couple of questions about trees. So I'm going to combine them. What about plans to care and trim existing trees and replacing trees in the strips? What should they be replaced with? So care and trimming of existing trees and replacing trees from the strips, and replace with what? And for this, we start with Erik Superman.
Thank you. Regarding the trees, I'll admit I'm not fully versed in all the legal minutia, but I understand it's somewhat of a challenging question in terms of who is responsible and when the community services district would take responsibility for the trees. Notwithstanding those questions, you know, I do think it's important that they be cared for, and that any trees that the district becomes responsible for through its work with parks, that we are proactive with regards to taking care of them, especially as some of the eucalyptus age out of their natural lifespan. In terms of replacement, I'm certainly not an arborist, but I would say that, you know, again, that comes down to discussions with the various community members as we're developing plans for the medians in particular. I think we would want to look at replacement with you know, trees that are perhaps a little bit shorter and a little bit more aligned with the natural ecology of the Bay Area.
Thank you. And next is Nancy Marsh.
Thank you. The use permit for the medians states that the county is responsible, the county owns the medians, they're responsible for the trees. In any place on the medians where the district makes improvements, the district has to do the maintenance of those improvements. And it's really not clear from the language if that includes any trees that are overhanging or within the boundaries of the improvements. So that is something that needs to be worked on with the county. In terms of replacements, we had, as part of our the Park Committee's recreation program this summer, a tree walk, and asked the arborist who was working on that lot about replacements that would be 30 to 50 feet tall, that would provide shade for the trails, that would provide some habitat for the birds and bugs that like them. And we got some good suggestions for coastal tolerant native trees that could be well established on them and become the next generation over time.
Thank you. And next is Davidseaton.
So yeah, I think to begin, I think the agreement's pretty simple in terms of we're responsible for clearing out trees that are going to affect our areas that we're doing structure development to, and the county is responsible for any trees that are potentially a safety hazard. I think where we need to be proactive is there's going to be a constant need for us to send letters saying, listen, we've identified these trees as safety hazard and would recommend that you guys take a look at potentially addressing these issues. I think the second side of that is I would like to see some type of policy that for every tree we cut down, we're going to be replacing it with another tree somewhere else, and whether those are, a small tree or trees that provide more cover or anything else. I think that could be customized into our actual details of our plans, but just the reassurance of knowing that we're not just going to go in and the medians are just going to be, bare of all trees, because I think that's one of the beauties of El Granada is you walk through and you see the trees and the fresh air and everything else. It's one of, the benefits of living in El Granada.
Thank you. And finally on trees, Barbara Dye.
I've done a lot of habitat restoration in my past, and there are a lot of options that we can do here that I think would be great. People may not realize that the eucalyptus trees actually actively have kind of a poison there, a allelopathic, that prevents other plants from growing around them. That's one reason it's so bare around their roots. So if we end up taking out some of the eucalyptus trees, which of course eucalyptus trees are not our responsibility until we improve the area around them. There's a lot of great trees and habitat that we could put in there. There's willows, there's toyons, and there are non-native, non-invasive trees also that are attractive and smaller and could be put in with minimal, we wouldn't need to irrigate them. I think there's a lot of options that would actually be more beautiful and more functional for our community than the tall, bare trunk eucalyptus trees.
Thank you. Our next question is about land use again. What are your thoughts on use of the empty lot next to the El Granada post office and also the soon-to-be abandoned fire station across the street? What are your thoughts on the use of the empty lot next to the El Granada post office and the soon-to-be abandoned existing fire station? And on this one, we start with Barbara Dye.
I want to buy them both. I think this is something that we have to budget our funds, and as you may know, we have, because of a provision of Prop 13, we do get some property tax money, which the state has threatened to take away if we don't use for sewers, and that's one reason we started the Community Services District was started 4 years ago. So we have some funds, we have to budget, we have to think about it, but the lot next to the post office would be a great place for a little town green. Maybe that's where the playground goes. Again, back to the community and ask them what they want. As for the old fire station, it's not clear it's seismically usable for the public, but if it were, by itself, it would make a good starter community center. Big room for meetings, there's bathrooms, there's small rooms for meetings, there's showers. It could be a great resource for this community. And if we budget our money well, eventually, maybe if it isn't usable, we build a new community center there, something for the people of El Granada to use to make our community more usable.
Thank you. And next on this is Davidseaton.
So yeah, I think if money's not an issue, it'd be amazing, to buy a property, build an amazing community center, and growing up in El Granada, there's nothing like that. It would be nice, but I look at it as you look at that and then hiring a director of parks and the salary and benefits of a couple $100,000 a year and all that. Pretty soon we're going to be in a position where we're saying, sorry, no money left for active recreation. Let's go out and do some active recreation projects first and prove what we said we were going to do when we became GCSD. And once we've proved that and we've done some projects and we have some parks projects for a director to come in and manage, then we could look at doing some of these other things that are more grandiose in scale. I think it'd be irresponsible to embark on that path. I think even a community center, there's options. You look at the library in Half Bay, how it's done with partnering with San Mateo County. When you partner with agencies, you can do projects that are immensely better. And I look at that as a great opportunity where if we take a step back and say, let's start reaching out to San Mateo County and all these other agencies that might need satellite space and have functions on the coast that they could tie into, we could, once we take that step back, we can move 10 steps forward in terms of building something better than we could ever do ourselves.
Thanks. And next is Nancy Marsh.
Thank you. As far as the lot next to the post office, it was part of some of the ideas that we tossed out for Burnham Park, and there was a pretty positive response rate from the people who gave us comments at that about making it some kind of plaza and making it something that is kind of part of in the same scene and sense of the park. I could envision something like MacDutra Plaza, except maybe with food trucks. As you know, I have a strong desire not to have to drive to Half Moon Bay or Pacifica on the weekends. So something that creates a space for people to go to, so you don't have to get out of Granada for entertainment would be great. For the fire station as potential community center, I think it has potential, and I think it is one of those areas where we could explore some consolidation or sharing, perhaps with Montera, on an expense that great or something that has that much potential to also eliminate their drives to Half Moon Bay on the weekends.
Thank you. And finally, Erik Superman.
Thank you. I think both properties really represent an opportunity to do a lot to beautify and improve, quote unquote, downtown El Granada. I think that within the realities and constraints of financing, certainly the vacant lot next door to the post office represents I think a relatively low-hanging fruit to expand and improve upon the concepts for the Burnham Strip and really have a nice flowing green space, open space within the front area of El Granada. With regards to the fire station, I think it is certainly something that we should explore in terms of whether it can be usable as a community center. I've not personally been inside it. I don't know that it's necessarily in the condition that we would need it to be in to do something in the near term, but it certainly should factor into the longer-term planning horizon for the district, whether it's on our own or in conjunction with other agencies.
Thank you. Just debating whether this is probably going to be our last question. Should government be run as a business? Why or why not? Aren't most people willing to pay a little more for more responsive and better service? Should this government be run as a business? Why or why not? Aren't most people willing to pay a little more for more responsive and better service? And for this, we'll start with Davidseaton.
You know, I think it's not a business, and it's separate from a business. There's tons of different functions that make it unique to what it is. But I think that within the framework of that, there are certain business decisions that need to be made, and I think that's where that's where looking at it from a business perspective in terms of, when you see agencies take a focus on, client service and things like that, it's not essential in terms of they could get away with horrible customer service. But when you go into a government agency and you see that commitment to something like client service and going above and beyond on that, it's something that you really appreciate, you value, and you can see. And I think that's where government agencies have they have a responsibility, and there's an opportunity to, with the technology and everything else that's out there, there's ways that they could adapt and partner and look at decisions from the framework of a business while still operating under a uniquely government structure.
Thank you. And next on this is Erik Superman.
Thank you. I guess to answer the question first, no, I don't think it should be run as a business, and I think the key difference between a business and an agency like ourselves is we're not doing this to make a profit. We are looking to provide a service to the community and do it in a way that is conscious of the cost and conscious of rate increases that would be coming from increased cost or inefficiency, but we're looking to provide the service as best we can within that framework. We're not looking to turn a tidy profit. I philosophically speaking, I do believe, and I would certainly be willing to pay more for better service. I think that we should be a district that is focused on providing service to our residents in a way that goes above and beyond, and we would try and find the right balance between keeping rates low while providing a quality level of service.
Thank you. And next is Barbara Dye.
This agency is not a business, but I agree with the whole idea that we are customer serving. We need to run this agency in a way that is transparent and efficient. And one of the things that we haven't talked about a lot tonight is communication. One of the things that we have started in the last, one of the things that started since I came on board is a new focus on communications. With a lot of help from Nancy, we did the first paper newsletter in, 5 years?
Yeah.
Out to our community to let them know the things that we're doing. And we are encouraging everyone to sign up for our new e-newsletter that's going to come out regularly. And our goal is to run this agency well, efficiently, and to communicate to the public what we're doing, why we're doing it, and to serve the public in the best way we can.
Thank you. And finally on this is Nancy Marsh.
Thank you, Margie. Should a government run as a business? Having been on executive management teams of big and small business, I would say no, because a business exists to perpetuate itself. And it might serve customers in order to do that, but its intent is to perpetuate itself and make itself successful. The difference in a government agency is it should be outwardly focused. It is there to serve interests other than itself. It should do that in a business-like way with good stewardship and good management and a lot of transparency. But it can be run business-like, but it's quite different from a business, and it needs to be focused on its community.
Thank you. And now it's time for our closing statements. We will reverse the order from that of the opening statements. So that means we start with Barbara Dye.
Thank you very much. Thank you again for hosting this tonight. I'm excited to continue the work that we started on Granada Community Service District Board. I came on the board a year and a half ago. The change to a parks district happened 4 years ago, and during that time, while some preparation work was done, really there wasn't much activity in terms of getting parks done. So I'm excited that since I came on the board, we have started the Burnham Strip project, Burnham Park project. We have started the Medians project with some specific plans. We are dealing with some of the major challenges with respect to SAM and so forth. I want to emphasize the fact that my goal for parks for El Granada is not to provide regional parks. This is a community parks that we want to have here. Quarry Park is a regional park. I support having some of the active recreation things that we've talked about, like the pump track in Quarry Park, but I think our parks need to just focus on our local community. I look forward to continuing to work on a lot of these projects, on communications, on park development, to work with creating a better oversight of the finances. I think we have some challenges with respect to staff because we've taken on this additional responsibility for parks, and we still have the same staff that we had before, and we may need to make some changes there so that we can be more responsive to the public and we can address some of the issues that come with the additional responsibilities that we have. And I look forward to working with the other agencies on the coast side to provide the best possible service for our residents for both trash pickup and sewer service. And as we say when we're out talking to people, sewers and parks, that's what we're about. Thank you very much, and I ask for your vote on November 6th. Thanks.
Thank you. And next will be Erik Superman.
Thank you, Marty, and thank you for the opportunity to come and speak to everyone tonight. I would just, reiterate that I think that we are at a place now, 4 years out from becoming a community services district, where we have a real opportunity to start moving from the planning stage to the execution stage, and I find that to be a really exciting opportunity, and something I'm very interested in personally. I'm an engineer by training, so I'm very much focused on project execution, getting things done. So I think that we have an exciting opportunity to move the Burnham Strip project forward, to really start thinking about how to improve the medians in a way that will make them more usable while being respectful of the various opinions of our community. We have an opportunity to work with the various other local agencies to improve our relationships, to eventually look at consolidation if it makes sense, to really move things forward in that arena. I find all of that very, very compelling, and I'm very excited about the prospect of doing that. In addition to that, in addition to being focused on project execution, though, I also have a focus on working closely with stakeholders, and really find that this is a good opportunity to meet and interact with the people in the community and really understand what you all are looking for and how best we can serve you more effectively and more meaningfully as a district.
Thank you. And our next closing statement is Davidseaton.
Okay, 65 raw sewage spills since 2013 across the coast, millions in fines and legal fees that could be going into other value-added, benefits to our community. None of us should be content with accepting this level of fiscal incompetence when the derivative of this wasted taxpayer money is directly polluting our community with raw sewage. I think the one reason why I'm optimistic is you look at these debates 4 years ago, and I was being shouted down for talking about things like, let's be open-minded about discussing these things. 4 years, later, you look at this, everyone running, and you see a total shift now of this new board has the potential to 3 board members, which could be majority control, to actually, it's full circle from the debates we were having about me being shouted down to even discuss these things, where now you're hearing candidates are actually open to considering addressing these things. And I think it's about time. I think people that live here, people that serve, are outraged that this continues to happen, and no one's held accountable for it. And so I think that there's an opportunity that in order for your voice, to be heard, I would recommend a vote for myself. I think that, the other candidates are running as a slate of 3, and I think that, whatever their intentions are, I think that all 3 of them being to the board, you're going to see the same things that have persisted in the past. And I think with my voice and new leadership coming on the board, potentially, I think you have the opportunity to seriously take a step back and consider addressing some of these issues that are plaguing our community with an open mind, and thinking through creative solutions, rather than just being, committed to preserving the past and past legacies.
Thank you. And finally, Nancy Marsh. Marsh.
Thanks, Margie. I believe that GCSD should be really community-driven, and I believe the responsibility of members of the board is to be a representative and a voice for the community. What I would really commit to is community outreach beyond expectations. I've had a great time the last couple weeks since, as a member of the Parks Committee, I posted on Nextdoor a listening session, information about a listening session we have coming up about the potential for a playground on the Balboa Strip. I think we're up to now nearly 40 comments, and back and forth, and a really nice dialogue evolving out of that. Better, I must say, than you typically see on Nextdoor. And what I've learned is people didn't really expect to be heard, to have their impact and their voices taken seriously, and that's what we're trying to prove back to them. I think you can look at on the Parks and Rec site for the Granada Community Services District. There's a new newsletter for the fall posted on the Parks and Rec site, as well as the report from Burnham Park. So we're really committed to good communication and outreach. For Parks and Rec, For recreation, for summer recreation, our biggest challenge is we have no venues in which to hold any recreation events. So we're looking forward to something like the Burnham Park so that we could have recreation events there, and potentially in the future a community center where we could have meetings and the less active recreation. For salmon sewers, I need to read and understand everything. I'm open to exploring ideas on structural revisions that are really mutually beneficial and that maintain or improve, to David's point, good stewardship of the environment. And lastly, I think I'm an effective both leader and member of teams. One of my last jobs, before I left my job, was to co-run an integration between a swap of 3 businesses between my company and another major pharmaceutical company. The HR team was lauded as the most effective. I had a good partner and we ran a good team, so I'm looking forward to bring that. So I appreciate your vote. Thank you.
Thank you. You can find additional information about the candidates on the League Smart Voter website, votersedge.org. All the candidates have been invited to enter their information and link to their own websites. Also, we just wanted to add, this election is an all mail-in election. We just remind you about the new voting system in San Mateo. There's more ways to vote, more days to vote. You can mail your stamped ballot. If you don't have your ballot yet, you should be getting it very soon. You can just mail it in, or you can drop it off at ballot drop-off centers, or there will be a voting center here on the coast side. It's going to be at the Emergency Operations Center, opening starting October 27th. And that'll be like your polling place with all the trained staff. You can get a provisional ballot. You'll have multilingual ballots, all the good stuff that you need if you need a little more assistance with your voting. There'll be drop-off ballot boxes in Half Moon Bay City Hall, Half Moon Bay Library, Half Moon Bay City Senior Center. And you can find all that. There's more information about this particular election and the logistics thereof outside there. Also, we have our pros and cons out there about the propositions, so you can educate yourself on all the propositions on this ballot. So that's what the League is doing for you. We're a nonpartisan political organization, and membership is open to both men and women of voting age. If you are interested in helping the community with forums such as this or other voting and participatory democracy events, come talk to Kathy, Betty, or I, or we have information in the back of the room or in the outside there. Remember to vote by Tuesday, November 6th, and encourage your friends and family to vote as well. And finally, please join me in thanking our candidates for putting themselves out there and running. It's a hard job, and they stepped up to do it, and we appreciate that. Thank you.
Thank you very much.
Stay for more fun with the Montera Water District.